happens when it all collapses to the ground?
What happens when you think you can be better?
What happens when your friend leaves you alone?
When things go wrong, we must go on.
What happens when there is nothing left to do? What happens when you have no one to talk to? What happens when you lose someone you thought would always be there? When things go wrong, we just go on. What happens when we can't go on nice days out? What happens when we can't go on holiday? What happens when we can't go and visit loved ones? When things go wrong, we just go on.
What happens when the school lights fade? What happens when our shelves all become empty? What happens when fun comes to an end? When things go wrong, we just go on.
What happens when the strong turns weak? What happens when the world becomes an empty planet? What happens when heaven is full? When things go wrong, we just go on.
What happens when it feels like life makes absolutely no sense? What happens when you lose someone you love? What happens if COVID conquers the world? When things go wrong, we just go on.
What happens when the pressure takes over happy times? What happens when the blue sky turns to grey? What happens when our life comes to an end? When things go wrong, we just go on.
What happens when you lose someone you look up to? What happens when your heart starts to crumble? What happens when there is no one there to help? When things go wrong, we just go on.